it's a shame that we've got rid of that ritual, because I think it's a really nice thing to do. There's a lot of things our grandmothers did, like inherently, that we should have adopted and we seem to have forgotten about.
Hello and welcome back to the Ideal Home Show YouTube channel. I'm Louise Gookey. Now joining me today is holistic health coach and interior designer Charlie Lemmer, here to help us answer a really powerful question. Is your home making you sick? And this is going to be looking at things from, such as hidden toxins to how we can make some swaps for better habits, and Charlie sharing practical ways that we can create a healthy living space. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, Louise. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to see you again.
Yeah, always. It's nice to have a little catch up. I know that you're taking the time to talk to us this afternoon, and you've got a really busy schedule, so we really, really appreciate it. So I guess before we delve into the details of that healthier home and, is it making us sick, what we can do you mind just sort of telling us a little bit about you? Because your role and your job that you do now is really niche, it's really specific, but it's so fascinating.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I find that we all come into our work or our roles normally from kind of our personal experiences in life. And mine was that I was very ill with an autoimmune illness, and I was working in real estate and property anyway. And I found myself working on the redevelopment of a theme park in Margate in Kent. And basically, because we were in this kind of office space that didn't really have any ventilation, they were using really strong, toxic kind of paint products, and lots of other kind of chemicals as part of the construction there. And I became even more ill. I already had autoimmune issues, which weren't that severe at the time, but then suddenly became much more severe. For example, the inside of my mouth would swell up 3 times the size. I was having really bad respiratory problems. I basically spent my time in the doctors with him kind of putting me on antihistamines the whole time and other things to try and kind of get me through it. But in the end, he just said to me, you know what, you're just going to have to change your environment. And so that's basically what then led me to take a deeper dive into the environment and the built environment specifically in our spaces and our homes and our offices and the effect that they have on our health.
Wow.
And
okay.
Originally, sorry to butt in then, I was going to say, originally I kind of thought, oh, well, this won't take long because I'll just look into kind of paints and toxins and those kind of things basically in the products that we were using and just find out about those. But then as with everything these days, once you kind of turn the page on one thing, you're going down a massive rabbit hole with, kind of everything from air quality to water quality to toxins in the products that we're using to toxins in just general kind of items of furniture. So yeah, it was a bit of a long rabbit hole after that.
Yeah, but like you said, the fact that it's come from that really personal place, the investment in it is obviously so much more, and it's really clearly as well something that's really helped you. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing some of your thoughts on this today.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I think it does is that one thing I realized was that I might be a bit of a canary in the coal mine. And I kind of discovered that I'm just quite chemically sensitive and just generally sensitive to, toxins in our environment and air quality and noise particularly and things like that. But it doesn't mean that other people aren't being effective. No. So what I learned was that basically, even though maybe you don't feel it, like in a headache or nausea, or you don't see it breaking out on your skin, it doesn't mean that it's not having a long-term effect on your health. So just because you think, oh, well, it doesn't really, paint doesn't affect me, or, noise doesn't affect me, or whatever, I'm fine. That doesn't mean that it's not having a little kind of chip away at your health, basically, over a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is really fascinating, like you say, the invisible side of it that we might not be realizing. All right, well, let's head into our homes then. What are some of the biggest, I guess, hidden health hazards that we've got in our homes?
Well, as you just mentioned, like most of them are invisible, which is one of the big issues, because obviously if we could see them, then we could basically deal with it a lot easier. But one of the first things I like to look at is air quality, because, according to the World Health Organization, it's literally one of the biggest killers of people prematurely in the world. And that's not only looking at indoor air pollution, but outdoor air pollution as well. And, these days we spend 95% of our time indoors, and especially during COVID, but afterwards as well, because we're adopting a more hybrid working model. And so indoor air pollution can be up to 5 times, 8 times more polluted, contaminated than outdoor air. So that's one of the first places I start, basically, because I think it's really important to get your air quality right, because we see it in our health. We see it instantly in our focus. And if you are working at home, basically, obviously you need your air quality to be as good as possible to be productive in your work, and also to get good focus. But, even a tiny kind of increase in CO2 as opposed to oxygen levels in your home can lead to lack of productivity, can lead to headaches, can lead to a bit of nausea. And it's not difficult to kind of improve your air quality, really. For one, you can just open the windows, which is perfectly free and easy to do. And our grandmothers used to do it every single morning. There used to be a ritual around opening the windows and letting the air exchange come in to the bedroom. And I think it's a shame that we've got rid of that ritual, because I think it's a really nice thing to do. There's a lot of things our grandmothers did, like inherently, that we should have adopted and we seem to have forgotten about. But yeah, air quality is definitely where I would start.
Yeah, amazing. So we're starting off then with the air quality. That's a nice, easy thing that we can be doing. Where do we go next? Because this is, I know you mentioned a couple of the other things. You mentioned cleaning products. You mentioned things like furniture. What are some of the... Obviously, we don't have time to go into every single hidden toxin in the home, but what are some of those, I guess, more surprising ones, the ones that we don't think about?
Yeah, well, I think, as you just mentioned, it's important to start with cleaning products, because that is part of air quality. So a lot of your standard cleaning products that you would buy in a supermarket, unfortunately, off-gas volatile organic compounds and other gases and chemicals that are not good for us into the air. And you might not smell that instantly yourself, but if you're thinking that you're kind of cleaning your floors, and then perhaps your kids and your babies are crawling around on the floor, and your pets obviously have their paws exposed on the floor, then I hear stories all the time, basically, of pets and children becoming very ill because of the cleaning product. So it's really interesting that as adults, I think we have to pay special attention to what we're using in the home because of children and dogs. But that also doesn't mean that it's not affecting you as an adult. So I definitely start with the cleaning products. I definitely look at fragrances. Fragrances are one of the most toxic thing in your home. And for some reason, I know we've discussed this before, people have become very obsessed with wanting their living room smelling like a tropical paradise. So everyone's got plugins in the walls, or is burning candles, and that's just really not beneficial for our health, unfortunately. I mean, I do know some candle addicts out there, so if you really can't do without your candles, then you can look at better options like soy candles or beeswax candles. And if you definitely have to have a little bit of fragrance, then only use essential oils. But so cleaning products I would start with, then fragrances coming from other things like plugins, and definitely these sprays, because aerosols in their own right are really bad for the environment. And then, if you're adding chemicals and stuff in that on top of that, even worse. These plugins thing, you've got to get rid of those straight away. And then after those, I think I would look at things like just making more conscious choices around the furniture you're buying, for example, because in glues and in the making of particular items of furniture, let's say, sometimes there's the use of formaldehyde and other chemicals like that within the glues. And so you want to make sure that basically your furniture or your carpets or your PVC flooring isn't off-gassing into your environment as well. I actually just spoke to a woman very recently who got into the work that she does around being a healthy home expert because her cat, I think it was, got very ill from the PVC flooring that was in their house.
Wow.
And so, sometimes, it was really difficult because she was lucky because she has an amazing vet that was really into alternative health and could spot these things, because I've never really heard a vet be able to kind of notice that kind of thing before. But yeah, she was lucky there. But that was her journey to get into this work. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And like you say, actually very lucky that her vet was on board with that, because it's not always something that we see in traditional medicine, should we say. So, and just bringing that, I know you get to talk to so many people in this environment and who are on their own journeys. You do have your own podcast, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
So it's called the Healthy Home Show podcast, and hopefully it does what it says on the tin. I try to interview and have on experts and leaders basically in the fields of both wellness and health, interior design, and really get people who come on and give us their insights and their expertise in their kind of niches. So I might interview a light expert one week basically, and she talks about, how our circadian rhythm is really important for our health and how our spaces can affect that. For example, have you got too much glare coming into the property? Are you maximizing the light in your property? Is there too much blue light from technology going on? And hopefully I'm going to have you in next week, actually, which would be great. And we'll be talking about sustainable fashion, which would be amazing. But recently I've spoken to some really interesting people around flame retardants in our sofas. And unfortunately, it's still government policy to put flame retardants on sofas. And they off gas, so they're polluting your air basically, and giving people respiratory illnesses and contributing to autoimmune issues. But also when that burns in the event of a fire, it's actually not healthy either. It kind of is the chemicals and the pollutants basically in the burning process that tend to do people most damage from the fire. So it's just a really strange, slow policy to change, unfortunately. But also, just before you move on, one thing you might be interested in, I don't know whether you have kids actually, I don't. But I was speaking to a lady on the podcast recently and talking about personal stories again. She set up her business because she had really ill children for years and years and she couldn't work out why. And in the end, she worked out that it was the bedding that they were sleeping on at night that had formaldehyde in it basically, and they were getting some horrible kind of rashes and things like that. But more than anything, they just weren't sleeping it well. They were coughing, they were getting respiratory issues and asthma. And once you changed the bedding, they got completely better. So, I mean, I find it incredible that you can have chemicals like that in kids' bedding, let alone any bedding. So...
Oh my goodness, I feel like this is just, we are scratching the surface. Like you said, there is so many things. I guess, we mentioned a touch about sort of the sustainability side of things as well. These things kind of go hand in hand, don't they? Getting rid of the hazards when it comes to the health in our homes. Does that lean naturally into being more sustainable as well?
I think so. I think so. I try and teach people how it's really important that human beings and our interconnectedness with nature. And a lot of the work I do is about bringing nature into the home because it's better for our health. And, it does go hand in hand, basically. All these products that are better for our health are better for the planet generally. So when I'm looking at buying products for interior designing someone's home, I'm always looking for not just products that are going to be better for our health, but that are going to break down slower. If you have to send them to landfill, hopefully you never will have to. Looking at reusing or repurposing where you possibly can, and just looking at the general whole lifestyle of the product, but also at the ethics behind it and, the company's ethics and how they've produced it. And hopefully there hasn't been any kind of slave labor involved or, misuse of our environment basically. So yeah, I do think it goes hand in hand. And I really wish people would understand that more, because I think if we're going to turn around the kind of problems that we're having with our climate and with our destruction of the planet, etc., we need to really understand how it's affecting us personally. Yeah. I mean, we shouldn't have to, because we should be doing it for the environment anyway. But I think once people really understand the damage that we're doing to ourselves by not nurturing our environment, then hopefully that will be the change that's needed.
Yeah. And again, I feel like this topic alone could be a whole nother talk. We'll save it for another day, because I think we're just scratching the surface here. So just going back to our homes then before we finish. A lot of the time when we talk about making these swaps to more maybe organic or less chemicals in our products, it can sometimes come with a price tag and not always affordable for everybody. So are there any sort of budget-friendly options that you've come across? I know we spoke about just opening your windows, easy, free. Are there any other tips around budget-friendly options that we can have to reduce the toxins in our homes?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say that kind of when I work with people, I use a sort of concept that I call stop, swap, and pimp.
Oh, I love it.
Just stop the chemicals, or just stop everything kind of in the first place. So, just don't use the fragrances, don't use these plugins, don't pollute your air in certain ways. But you can swap them out for healthier versions. So you can use probiotic cleaners or healthier cleaners. So that's just a direct swap. Are they more expensive? I don't think so, because a lot of these ones that come in smaller, like sustainable packages, they last longer and you don't need as much. So I think it's just a change in mentality, really, away from our kind of throwaway, kind of immediate mentality. I don't really think it does cost that much more money. But if you do want to pimp it and you do want to get an air filter and, get something in, you can obviously pay out some money and do that. But it's not necessary. I've got a nice air filter at home that I really like. I only really ever use it in summer maybe, or in winters when I've got the windows closed. It depends, because sometimes there can be, more kind of like environmental kind of barbecues and stuff where I live, basically outside, so it kind of warrants using it a bit more in summer or winter because I'm not opening the windows. But yeah, point is, you can open the windows, or if you're a real geeky, sciencey person like me, then you can go all in for the water filter or all in for the air filter, etc. There are ways to kind of totally pimp it.
Yeah, no, I like that. So you've got both options really, and essentially turning off the tap of those fragrances and the things that you just don't need that cost us money. Yeah, is a way of saving it. It's a budget-friendly way.
But also kind of prioritizing. I mean, I sort of resist saying this to people sometimes, but it's a bit like, it depends what's important to you. And obviously my health is really important to me, and I'm passionate about it. And so I don't mind paying out the money on an air filter as opposed to buying a car. Or, I don't have a car, basically. So I travel by train everywhere. I prefer to do that. I mean, I do quite like driving, but it's just that it's more economical for me not to have a car particularly. And I'd rather spend my money on water filters, knowing that, all the water I'm drinking is kind of fresh water. So I think sometimes it depends on what you want to prioritize. And also, if we get stuck into things like skincare, which is a bit outside the home kind of concept, but it's still relevant because it's about, toxins and... most women don't realize that they're putting between 12 and 14 products on their skin every day, which has over 200 chemicals, which we have to then detox out of our body. And I just don't buy into the consumerism, really, of like, we need a different cream for our eye and a different cream for our day cream and then night cream and then nose cream. And so I think it's sometimes about consuming less and prioritizing what's important to you, really. And if you don't want to pay out for an air filter this year and you want to save for one next year, then great. I mean, just open the windows. But if you're pretty geeky like me and you kind of want to be able to measure it and see kind of like exactly what's going on, then it can be fun sometimes.
Amazing. Listen, Charlie, we have to wrap up. I could talk to you about this all day. But just before we do, remind us again of your podcast.
The podcast is called The Healthy Home Show Podcast, and it's bi-weekly. Is it bi-weekly? That means every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, every other week, yeah.
And I also have a newsletter on Substack and a newsletter on LinkedIn called Charlie's Healthy Homes, and you can find me on Instagram under The Healthy Home Show. So if you want some tips, free tips or anything, then have a look there or send me a DM or whatever. I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Amazing. Charlie, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. And thank you, of course, to everyone watching as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the usual stuff, and you can find out more healthy home ideas and hear from our experts here at the Ideal Home Show YouTube channel. We will chat to Charlie again in the future, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, thank you once again, Charlie, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.